In this video, we're going to talk about how to properly read a tape measure in construction. And I'm going to show you something that probably even most of the old timers don't know, and you're going to love it. So like I said, most people read tape measures the wrong way, and they don't know it. Even people that think, Jason, you're doing a video about tape measures, there's some things here that you're about to learn that are pretty cool. And I want you to know I'm right about it. And so if you stay in this video, you're gonna learn 2 key tips that will really save you a lot of heartache in your job, especially when you're using a tape measure. So let's do that right now. All right, so this may sound silly, but reading a tape measure is super important. This is a fundamental skill. I've heard and learned from my brother Weston Woolsey at Oakland Construction, and I knew it before, but he coined the phrase for me. A good superintendent will always have a tape measure on their person. You will not walk out in the field without your tape, because you're going to use this for so many different things. And especially field engineers, you'll definitely not go outside of the office without your tape measure. So right now I'm going to teach you 7 things that are crucial when you're using your tape measure. So first, let me talk, there are a lot of different types of tape measures. This is a Stanley FatMax 35-foot tape measure. I'll typically do a 35-foot. These, every now and then, if they get dirty, they'll break sooner than like a 30-foot or a 25-foot will. But they're pretty sturdy. I really like them. I like the way they look. It doesn't matter which one you're using as long as they're in good repair and as long as they are long enough for you to measure the kinds of things that you're going to measure. Typically, in the United States, 30 feet is about the average grid length. So if you get a 35-foot tape, you can typically measure between grid lines. So that's why I recommend this one. One thing that I would like to say, that this is in Imperial. This is in feet and inches. So you will see here that it marks the feet on the tape, and then you'll see the graduated inches along the tape measure itself. This is in feet and inches. If you have a tape measure that is in decimal feet, you have to understand that instead of being graduated within 12 inches, it will be in tenths and in hundredths and in thousandths. So you'll have to understand that. And that's primarily used with surveying, elevations, and coordinate geometry calculations, which I prefer. The other thing that you might get into is the use of the metric system. Now, I'll tell you some interesting facts. The United States is legally a metric nation. Legally. That's why when you go do projects for the federal government, especially entities like the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they do their projects, they design them in the metric system. And it's quite fantastic. Like, if you get used to the metric system, it is highly superior to Imperial, to the feet and inches system. But the key here is don't mix them. Don't go do a project in metric and then go do the civil in feet and inches, right? You want to stick with it. In fact, Wes Crawford tells a story where there was a project where they went from one project where it was all designed in Imperial feet and inches, and then they transitioned to the metric system on the second job. And as soon as somebody walked in the job, he would say, give me your tape measure, and hand them a metric tape measure so that they didn't have to do any conversions and they didn't make any mistakes. Number 2, how to read a tape itself. And so I do want you to know that when you're reading the tape measure, you will see these feet marks throughout the tape measure. Obviously, that indicates feet. In the feet and inches, you will see 1 to 11, and then the foot mark is the 12th inch. This symbolizes inches. When you are measuring inside your tape measure, everything inside of that inch measurement will be in 16ths. And there will be different lengths of lines, where the longest line measures a 1/2 inch, the second longest lines measure 1/4 of an inch, and the third longest lines measure 1/8 of an inch, and the smallest are 16ths. So when you measure along the tape, if you measure, like, let's say to this point, it will be 7 inches, and then whatever the increment is inside that inch mark. So if I'm pointing here, it's 7.5 inches. So understanding the division of measurement inside that inch is super key. The best thing to do here is to really just get familiar with it. So here's 1/16. 1/8 is also 2/16, then 3/16, then 4/16 ends up being 1/4 of an inch. 5/16, then 6/16 ends up being 3/8. So you can understand every point along this tape will be in its most simplified number, its simplified fractional representation. So when you read the tape measure, get a feel for the division between the inches, or if you're using decimal feet, get familiar with the tenths, the hundredths, and the thousandths measurements inside that distance of a foot. Number 3, I want you to understand that when you see an elevation, when you are doing coordinate geometry calculations, or when you're dealing with surveyors, you will not see the feet and inches. Feet and inches are not designed for mathematical calculations. It's very, very complex and it's very annoying. So what you'll have is decimal feet. So you'll get rid of the 12 inches and everything in here will be in tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So I just want you to know that if you're reading a civil elevation, it will be in decimal feet. When you are doing coordinates, it will be in decimal feet. When you're doing mathematical calculations, it will always be in decimal feet. So know the difference. Number 4, how do you read the end of the tape? This is huge. So some people say, oh, look at that, the end of the tape, it's moving, it's inaccurate. Actually, that's not true. It is perfectly designed to hit at 0. So this moves in and out of its own way. So if you're hitting up against something or butting up against something, it is perfectly at 0. And then if you are hooking something, it moves out of its own way and it's perfectly at 0. So these ends of the tape, they move. Some people are like, that's inaccurate. No, it's not. The thickness of the metal at the end is how much it moves. So it moves out of its own way. So if you know how to measure at 0, you never have to burn a foot. And that is topic number 5. You never, ever, 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 I'll do 2 more, ever, no, 1 more, ever burn a foot. Some of the old timers will say, oh, Jason, I burn a foot all the time because the end isn't accurate or it's easier for me to do. No, it's not. If you start to burn a foot, you will increase the statistical likelihood, your chances of laying something out wrong by a foot. It happens all the time. We have people all over the industry that are chipping down walls that are a foot too high, that are removing and replacing columns that are a foot off, that have completely tanked their grid lines and have to go back and redo things because they are measuring things a foot off, because they forget to either add or subtract a foot when they're burning a foot. This is a horrible, horrific, not necessary practice. If you know how to actually hold the tape at 0, you never have to burn a foot. Real professionals that know how to use tape measures never, ever, ever burn a foot. Now, some of you old timers are like, I love Jason, but he's so wrong about this. Liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm right, you're wrong. This is 100% a fact. I fought it myself when Wes Crawford taught it to me. Then I observed how many mistakes were happening from it. We never, ever, ever burn a foot. The other thing is, when you're using them, keep them clean. At the end of being out in the field, if it's a muddy or a dirty day, you might extend the tape and take a nice, just moist rag or a baby wipe or whatever you have in the actual trailer and just wipe it as you feed it back in to your tape measure, and just wipe that down and keep it well maintained. You don't want these things to get dirty and be hard to use them in the field. When you need to take a measurement, you need to do it right then and there. They're very, very accurate, especially when they're well maintained. Number 7, you will use these within the 35 foot, 30 foot, 25 foot distance, but you will likely not use them for longer distances. That's when you're going to break out your chain and you're going to adjust for temperature, sag, and you're going to have the right tension. If it's over 100 foot, you might consider using a total station. If it's over 1,500 feet, you'll start to consider using GPS. So these do have their limitations, but within that 35 foot distance, they are beautiful. They are absolutely perfect for measuring very accurate distances as long as you're holding them level or perpendicular to the measurement and know how to hold it at 0. And the last thing I want to say is when you're doing this right, you know how to measure at the end, you know how to read the tape, you know not to convert between decimal feet, imperial feet and inches, and metric. You know that you need to stick with one or the other. You know never to burn a foot. You're out there keeping it clean, well maintained. You always have it with you. You will be able to estimate the location of things on the project site with real dimensions. Check safety requirements like heights for when you need to be tied off. Check dimensions for quality installations, especially doing pour checks for concrete placements. And measure many, many other things dimensionally on the project site. Because most of what we do is managing where things go. That means the dimensional relationship of things on site. So it's not just how, it's not just when, it's not just why, it's not just who, it's also where. And to figure out the where, we need to be able to measure things. So you'll need your tape measure with you on site all the time, and you'll need to know how to use it properly. And if anybody's mad at me about the burning the foot or using the end, I would love to hear your hate speech in the comments, because I'll engage with you and hopefully bring you along and get you into proper thinking. So please comment in the video below. And if you love stuff like this, by the way, I'm not saying this lightly. Like, I didn't just learn this and throw it on a video. Like, I've trained thousands of field engineers. Like, I'm one of the best in the industry when it comes to field engineering. I am helping Wes Crawford write the 4th version of his book. I am an expert at surveying and layout and control. I'm a professional field engineer, and I host field engineer boot camps all the time. I know what I'm talking about. This is a gem. It starts here. I'm going to link you to the Field Engineering Methods Manual or the Construction Surveying and Layout book below to save you some time if you want to go buy that book. And if you ever have any questions, want to argue with me or learn more, hit me up in the comments. I love you. On we go.